In this video, we dive deep into the eerie world of analog horror, a genre that blends spine-chilling suspense with a nostalgic look back at the Soviet past. We'll explore how this unique genre tells stories that blur the line between reality and fiction, inspired by Soviet culture, media, and the haunting atmosphere of Cold War-era technology. The 1970s and 80s in the Soviet Union were a time of strict control over information and media. Television and radio were the primary sources of news and entertainment, operating under heavy censorship. Citizens had limited access to foreign media, and government-controlled broadcasts shaped public perception. Amid this backdrop, mysterious tales and urban legends began to circulate, stories that combined genuine fear with propaganda, superstition, and the collective anxiety of living under constant surveillance. These legends became the fertile ground upon which the analog horror genre builds its unsettling narratives. At its core, analog horror uses low-fidelity visuals and sounds reminiscent of old television broadcasts and VHS tapes. The grainy images, distorted audio, static interruptions, and glitchy visual artifacts recreate the sensation of an old analog signal breaking down. This aesthetic connection to outdated technology evokes a powerful sense of nostalgia, while the stories themselves evoke dread and unease. The format mimics the experience of stumbling upon a mysterious broadcast late at night or finding a damaged tape with disturbing content. Popular analog horror projects like Kranagurzy TV, The Mandela Catalog, and Local 58 have set the tone for the genre, mixing surreal, eerie storytelling with imagery strongly influenced by Eastern European and Soviet media aesthetics. Kranagurzy TV, for example, mimics the style of 1990s Polish children's television programs, but overlays them with nightmarish, surreal elements that slowly unravel a dark narrative beneath the surface. The innocent facade gradually peels away to reveal something far more sinister lurking underneath. The Mandela Catalog explores psychological and supernatural horror through distorted visuals and cryptic messages, suggesting otherworldly entities that invade human perception through technology. These projects use subtle visual cues, symbolic storytelling, and deliberately ambiguous narratives to create an atmosphere thick with tension and mystery. They rely on the viewer's imagination to fill in the gaps, making the horror more personal and effective. To fully appreciate the genre, it helps to understand the historical and political context that inspires it. The Soviet Union's iron grip on information fostered a culture of secrecy and distrust. Official media presented a sanitized version of reality, while citizens often relied on rumors, whispered conversations, and underground networks to learn what was really happening. This environment of information scarcity created fertile ground for conspiracy theories, urban legends, and ghost stories that filled the gaps in public knowledge. Analog horror taps into these collective anxieties, using the medium of broadcast technology to amplify fear. The format itself becomes part of the horror, the idea that something sinister could infiltrate the very systems we rely on for information and entertainment. This concept resonates particularly strongly in the context of Soviet media control, where the line between truth and propaganda was often deliberately blurred. One common theme in Soviet-inspired analog horror is the idea of lost or forbidden knowledge. Stories of secret government experiments, shadowy research institutions, classified documents, or mysterious broadcasts that disappear without explanation echo Cold War paranoia. These narratives blur the line between reality and fiction, making the audience question what might be lurking just beyond the reach of official history. The horror comes not just from what is shown, but from what is deliberately hidden or obscured. Another important facet is the use of urban legends and ghost stories specifically related to Soviet media and technology. Tales about cursed television shows that drove viewers insane, vanished programs that existed only in people's memories, and strange radio signals that caused widespread panic are woven into the genre's mythology. These stories often position technology itself as a medium of horror, a conduit for unseen forces or malevolent entities disrupting everyday life. The emotional impact of analog horror combines visceral fear with a wistful longing for a bygone era. The visuals and sounds are carefully designed to recall the crackling TV sets, fuzzy reception, and static-filled radio broadcasts that many viewers remember from childhood or have seen in period films and documentaries. This nostalgic aesthetic creates a unique psychological tension. The comfort of familiarity collides with the disorientation of the uncanny, creating a deeply unsettling viewing experience. The genre also explores themes of isolation and paranoia that were particularly relevant during the Soviet era. Many analog horror stories focus on individuals who discover disturbing information through media sources, only to find themselves increasingly isolated as they try to share their discoveries with others. This mirrors the experience of Soviet citizens who learned uncomfortable truths about their government but had no safe outlet to discuss or verify their concerns more than mere scare tactics. Analog horror often serves as cultural commentary and historical reflection. It reflects on how governments control information, manipulate public perception, and use media as tools of propaganda and social control. In the Soviet context, where truth was often obscured, rewritten, or completely fabricated, the genre resonates deeply by reconstructing a past filled with shadows, half-truths, and deliberate omissions. The production techniques used in analog horror are deliberately crude and low-tech, mimicking the limitations of Soviet-era broadcasting equipment. Poor video quality, audio distortion, and technical glitches become storytelling devices rather than obstacles. This aesthetic choice serves multiple purposes. It creates authenticity, establishes atmosphere, and suggests that the content being viewed might be real archival footage rather than fictional entertainment. At its best, analog horror invites viewers to become active participants rather than passive consumers. The format encourages detective work, piecing together clues hidden in distorted images, decoding cryptic text messages, analyzing audio for hidden meanings, and trying to map out the narrative woven through fragmented episodes. This interactive element adds to the engagement, encouraging multiple viewings, detailed analysis, and community discussion among fans. Online communities dedicated to analog horror spend countless hours dissecting individual frames, creating timeline theories, and debating the meaning of subtle details. This collaborative aspect of interpretation mirrors the way information was shared in Soviet society through careful observation, coded language, and trusted networks of like-minded individuals looking beyond the screen. Analog horror also connects to broader trends in contemporary horror storytelling, including found footage films, psychological thrillers, and alternate reality games. Its use of media artifacts to tell a story draws on primal fears of the unseen and unknown, particularly as they relate to technology that we depend on but don't fully understand. The genre's effectiveness lies in its ability to make the familiar feel threatening. Television, radio, and other communication technologies are so integrated into daily life that we rarely consider their potential for manipulation or misuse. Analog horror forces us to confront the possibility that these trusted sources might be compromised, corrupted, or controlled by forces with malevolent intentions. The evolution of analog horror as a medium reflects broader changes in how we consume and interpret media. In the digital age, where high-definition content is the norm, the deliberate use of low-quality, degraded visuals creates an immediate sense of unease. This aesthetic choice is particularly effective when combined with Soviet-era themes, as it evokes memories of state-controlled media systems where technical limitations were often used to obscure rather than clarify information. Soviet television and radio programming followed strict guidelines that prioritized ideological messaging over entertainment value. Programs were designed to educate, indoctrinate, and control rather than simply entertain. This created a unique media landscape where subtext and hidden meanings became essential for both creators and audiences. Analog horror draws on this tradition of coded communication, using visual and audio elements to convey messages that operate below the surface of the apparent narrative. The psychological impact of analog horror is amplified by its use of familiar cultural touchstones from the Soviet era. References to specific television programs, radio broadcasts, government announcements, and public service messages create an immediate sense of recognition for viewers familiar with this history. Even those who didn't experience the Soviet Union directly can recognize the authoritarian undertones and oppressive atmosphere that these references evoke. Many analog horror creators draw inspiration from real events and phenomena from Soviet history. The Chernobyl disaster, government cover-ups, secret police operations, psychiatric hospitals used for political prisoners, and mysterious disappearances all provide rich source material for fictional narratives. By grounding their stories in historical reality, creators make the fictional elements more believable and disturbing. The use of authentic Soviet imagery, typography, and design elements adds another layer of credibility to analog horror productions. Creators often research historical fonts, color schemes, broadcast formats, and technical specifications to ensure their work accurately captures the look and feel of the era they're depicting. This attention to detail helps create the illusion that viewers are watching genuine archival footage rather than contemporary fiction. Language and translation also play important roles in Soviet-inspired analog horror. Many productions incorporate Cyrillic text, Russian or other Slavic languages, and period-appropriate terminology to enhance authenticity. However, creators must balance accuracy with accessibility, ensuring that non-Russian speakers can still follow the narrative while maintaining the cultural specificity that makes the content effective. The sound design in analog horror is particularly crucial for creating atmosphere and maintaining immersion. Creators use period-appropriate audio equipment, recording techniques, and sound effects to recreate the distinctive audio characteristics of Soviet-era broadcasts. Static, interference, distortion, and sudden audio dropouts become narrative tools rather than technical flaws. Music and ambience sound also contribute significantly to the genre's effectiveness. Soviet-era compositions, particularly those used in television and radio programming, carried specific cultural and emotional associations. Analog horror creators often use these musical elements to trigger nostalgic memories while simultaneously subverting their original meanings to create unease and tension. The collaborative nature of analog horror creation and consumption reflects the underground culture that existed in the Soviet Union. Just as Soviet citizens shared forbidden books, music, and ideas through informal networks, modern analog horror fans create communities dedicated to sharing, analyzing, and expanding upon the genre's mythology. This participatory aspect makes viewers feel like they're part of a secret society discovering hidden truths. The genre's focus on bureaucracy, official documentation, and institutional authority also connects directly to Soviet experience. Many analog horror stories center around government agencies, research institutions, or official procedures that slowly reveal sinister purposes. This reflects the real-world experience of living under a system where bureaucratic processes could determine life and death, and where official explanations were often incomplete or deliberately misleading. Analog horror's treatment of time and memory resonates particularly strongly with post-Soviet audiences who lived through the collapse of their political system and the subsequent rewriting of historical narratives. The genre's emphasis on lost, suppressed, or altered information mirrors the experience of discovering that much of what they had been taught about their own history was false or incomplete. The international appeal of Soviet-inspired analog horror demonstrates the universal nature of fears about government control, media manipulation, and historical truth. While the specific cultural references may be unfamiliar to some viewers, the underlying themes of paranoia, isolation, and the abuse of power transcend cultural boundaries. As the genre continues to evolve, creators are finding new ways to blend Soviet themes with contemporary concerns about digital surveillance, social media manipulation, and information warfare. This evolution shows how analog horror can serve as a bridge between historical anxieties and modern fears. Using the aesthetics of the past to comment on the dangers of the present, the educational value of well-researched analog horror should not be overlooked. Many productions introduce viewers to aspects of Soviet history, culture, and daily life that are rarely covered in mainstream media or formal education. By embedding historical information within engaging fictional narratives, creators can reach audiences who might otherwise never learn about these topics. In essence, analog horror inspired by Soviet themes represents more than just a niche entertainment genre. It serves as a form of cultural memory, historical commentary, and artistic expression that helps preserve and transmit important aspects of human experience across generational and cultural boundaries. In conclusion, analog horror inspired by Soviet-era aesthetics and themes offers a rich, immersive experience that blends nostalgia, historical intrigue, psychological terror, and social commentary. It transforms retro media formats into vessels of mystery and fear, reminding us how powerful and unsettling the ghosts of the past can be when combined with the technological tools of the present. The genre serves as both entertainment and warning, encouraging viewers to question the sources of their information and remain vigilant about the ways media can be used to shape perception and control behavior. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the spooky world of analog horror and Soviet history, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon for more chilling stories and explorations into forgotten realms. Thanks for watching, and remember, sometimes what's hidden in the static is far more terrifying than what we can see clearly.